remember to record. Okay, so those equations, we call them linear. So they come with letters, so they've got an X in them, plus a number, they've got an equal sign. Okay, so all these different components make up that linear equation. So we're just going to work on them a bit more today, okay, and play around with them, manipulate them, okay, and build up to something called simultaneous equations. Okay, and simultaneous equations is sort of the next step where we pull in data and understand data ourselves, put that into equation form and allow us to find out unknowns, okay, or variables. Okay, and that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to look at a problem and work out what our unknown parts of it are. So whether that be the gradient of a straight line or where it cuts the y-axis, okay, or when we're doing simultaneous equations, a missing point, okay, or where these lines intersect. Okay, all these different things we can use, you know, these equations for, these types of equations for. Okay, and we'll start to build in something called story equations, where we put a wee bit more of a story behind that. Okay, and that's more common what you'll see in the exam. Okay, they'll put a story behind it, they'll put it into a real life sort of situation. Okay, you need to pull data from it and sort of put it all together. Okay, and these can sometimes throw you a bit. Okay, but they're usually worth quite a bit of marks in the exam. So if we need to, we'll spend a couple of weeks on this. Okay, hopefully we'll go through it today, manipulate them about, it sort of becomes apparent, it becomes quite clear what we're trying to do. We'll look at a couple of past papers, a couple of exam questions. Okay, I've pulled them off that website that I talk about, this free National 5 Maths one. Okay, that I've sent a link out to. So I've pulled them off a couple of past papers and we'll go through a couple of examples on that. And again, any questions, guys, fire them to me. So I only had a couple through Christmas period. Okay, obviously well-earned rest for a lot of us. Okay, so hopefully start picking up, okay, over the next couple of months. Start throwing questions to me, anything you want marked, anything you want me to look at, anything, okay? Don't sit there stuck on a problem, throw something at me. Okay, so linear equations. Share screen. Let's have a wee look. Everyone's on go slow. Right, go there and end. Go there and end. Okay, hopefully this stays with us. Okay, so linear equations, what are we talking about when we're talking about linear equations? Okay, something in the format where we've got an unknown variable. Okay, got an unknown variable we put a letter in for, and that can be any letter. We tend to use X, Y's, okay, but you'll see as we go through, you can use A's, B's, F's, whatever. Okay, so you can use a bunch of different letters there. Okay, so don't be put off by those different letters. Okay, what else are we looking for in a linear sort of relationship? Okay, that sort of equal sign. Okay, so we're always looking and we're thinking about, and we've been looking at balancing equations. Okay, so the left hand side is equal to the right hand side. Okay, so when we're trying to balance out, we're often asked to solve an equation to try and find that variable. Okay, so we need to rearrange all these different parts of it to focus in to really look at, in this case, what X is going to be, and manipulate it and change it out. So we'll continue on, we'll look at a wee bit of that, and we'll really push our skills in that respect. Okay, I had a couple of questions through the Christmas period where we're talking about fractions and moving across fractions and just really understanding that aspect of it. So I'll go through a couple of them, and it leads in quite nicely to what we're doing anyway. Okay, so we'll go through a couple of those examples and just make sure we're really on top of that. Okay, I will allow you a wee bit of time to go through some examples tonight, and we'll just take sort of baby steps just to make sure that we're getting it and we're all in the same boat. Okay, first night back, so let's not, try and complete everything. Okay, so let's take our time, push on. Okay, so linear, let's have a wee look. Okay, so I'm becoming quite comfortable with my God, that's meant to say example. I'm drawing it. Okay, equations like this, okay, where we're trying to solve, or we're trying to rearrange, or we're trying to put into a format, okay, that allows us to find a variable. Okay, so in this case, we want to find out what x is. Okay, so nice simple example to start us off. X just be 9, change side, change sign. Okay, and x would just be 3 in that case. Okay, so remember that variable, maybe that applies to a graph, so we can go to a graph and see where along the x-axis, what that means, where that put. Or x could just be a variable that could mean anything. Okay, we looked at an example before Christmas where it was engine size, okay, and the petrol consumption. Okay, so it can mean, it's just a variable, can mean different things. Okay. Okay, things like that. Okay, we're quite comfortable now. Where we want to move that over, we know it's a multiple. Okay, so if it's a multiple on the left-hand side, when we move it over to the right-hand side, it's going to become a divide. Okay, so if we were to isolate x, so if we were to solve that equation for x, okay, we want to leave x on its own in its left-hand side. You're moving that 7 across. Okay, it becomes a divide. X in this case would equal 4. Okay, so what we're doing to the left-hand side, we need to do it to the right-hand side so it remains balanced. Okay, so different people teach this in different ways. So you might have heard it or seen a resource that looks at it in a slightly different way, but that's essentially what all we're doing. We're just balancing the left-hand side with the right-hand side. Okay, we're trying to isolate different variables, in this case, just the letter x. Okay. Throwing some more things in. Okay, we spoke quite extensively about when we're rearranging, we want to do sort of reverse BODMAS. Okay, so brackets, order, divide, multiply, add and subtract. That's just a way we can organize the order in which we carry out calculations. Okay, so when we are moving stuff about, if we just do that in reverse, okay, first things you want to move are the add and subtract. Okay, second things you want to move, divide and multiply. Okay, and the third things we want to concentrate on, break apart, is your brackets and your orders. Okay, so when we're moving things across, okay, is there any adds there? Yep, so we can move that 7 across, becomes a negative on the other side. Okay, move that multiply across, it becomes divide on the other side. Okay, that's out of the way. Okay, so nothing really untoward. Throw a couple of negatives in there as well. Okay, so we're solving for x. We're having to rearrange that equation. Okay, doing the add subtract first. Okay, so the plus 10, we're moving that to the other side. We're doing the same to both sides. Okay, so minus 4x would be left 26 minus 10. Okay, minus 4x would equal 16. We want to leave ourselves with x. Okay, so we want to take this minus 4 over. Okay, and a really common mistake is when we move that multiple. Okay, so remember that means minus 4 multiplied by that variable x. Okay, that's just an unknown variable that we substitute in later. So it's minus 4 multiplied by that variable x. Okay, so because we're moving a multiple over, okay, the sign doesn't change. Okay, so it's 16 divided by minus 4. Okay. Okay, so just be careful. That sign in there doesn't change. When a positive is divided by a minus, you're going to get a minus out there. Okay, so just be careful with these rules like that. It just takes practice. It's just you do that enough, it sort of becomes ingrained. Okay, so minus 5. Why is that not showing? 10 minus 7x. Okay, so we've taken that, even though the order's changed a wee bit and the x is on the right hand side of that the expression. Okay, we just take over that plus 10. Okay, it's positive 10 on the left hand side, so it becomes a negative 10 on the right hand side. Okay, negative 7x is negative 28. Okay, moving that multiple over. Okay, so we're moving that minus 7x across. Okay, because it's a multiple on the left hand side, the sign doesn't change. Okay, so just be careful that sign comes with you. Okay, a negative divided by a negative is going to give you a positive answer. Okay, I'll give you 4. Okay, so there's lots of different questions on that type of sort of manipulation in the pack. Okay, when you're going through it, so there's lots of ways to practice that. Okay, so there's lots of from page 12. Okay, from page 12, there's lots of wee ones to practice in there. Okay, so if you're not too sure about negatives, okay, if you're not too sure about how to solve it, okay, and move that negative across, just have a wee look at those questions. Okay, have a wee practice at them. Remember the answers are at the back. Okay, if you're not getting one of the answers, if you've got any questions on that, give me a wee shout. Okay, and we can talk about it, we can look at it, that's not a problem. Okay, so have a wee play at that and just familiarise yourself, get up to speed with that and be comfortable moving different parts of the equation across. Okay, it becomes important for what we're doing. Okay, what I'm going to move on to is just a wee additional part to that. Okay, so the expressions that I went through there when we're solving for x were quite simple. Okay, the left hand side and right hand side only had a couple of expressions. Okay, but if we throw a couple of more expressions in, okay, we continue in the same vein and we can use the same rules. Okay, so we're just going to add more numbers in, more letters in. Okay, don't be put off, don't be scared by this. Okay, Remember, in maths, we just take it one step at a time. As long as you follow step by step, you get there in the end. Okay. Okay, so we got an expression for that. Okay, and we get asked solve for x. Okay, we want to take that expression, we want to rearrange, okay, to put all the x's on one side and all the numerical values, okay, the whole numbers on the other side. Okay, so just in effect, we want to collect like terms, okay, and we've heard that term before. Okay, so collecting like terms. So we want to move the 2x over there. That 3 we want to move over there. Okay, and we follow those same rules. Okay, so because that's an add, we can take it across, it becomes a negative on the left-hand side. Vice versa, negative on the left-hand side becomes a positive on the right. Okay, so 6x stays where it is. The 2x comes across, it's a positive on the right, so it becomes a negative. Okay, we're moving that negative 3 across. The 15 is positive, so that stays where it is. The negative becomes a positive on the right hand side. Okay. And then we just solve for x. Okay, so the last part, we need to move this back across. And do that 9 over 2. Okay. So we're collecting like terms. So we did that previously. We've done that when we did breaking brackets. We just collected like terms. Just what we're seeing here is they're just in two sides of the equation. So we need to bring them all over to one side and just collect like terms on either side. Okay, but nothing changes with what we've been talking about when we're rearranging that. Okay, if it's negative on one side, it becomes positive on the other, vice versa. Okay. I can move that whole expression. Okay, the whole expression, that 2x. Okay, I can move that whole expression. Okay, because it's part of an addition. Okay, so that's just plus 2x. I can move that whole 2x across. Okay, what I couldn't do is remove that 2 at this moment. Okay, because it's part of this addition. Okay, so if you remember, you still need to follow BODMAS. Okay, and when we're rearranging, we're doing it backwards and reverse. Okay, so we're starting at the right hand side and moving left. So we still need to start with the add, and we'll add and subtract as our first step. Okay, move them either side. Okay, and collect like terms. Okay, not a couple of them, and then I'll maybe give you 5-10 minutes just to look at, open up that document and have a wee look at it. Okay, so a couple more. Okay, so if we get asked to solve for x, okay, we want to bring all the x's over to one side and all the numerical values, all the whole numbers over to the other. Okay, so that negative 10 moving over to the right hand side, that 9x moving over, moving over to the left. So you can do it one at a time, or you can 7x minus 9x. Okay, it's positive on the right hand side, so when it moves over to the left, it becomes negative. Okay, that negative 10 becomes positive. Okay, negative 2x, and that would be positive 2. Okay, we want to leave x on its own. that -2 is a multiple, so it comes over to the other side, it becomes a divide. Okay. So in this case, x is equal to -1. Okay, it's one of those things that you watch and you go, hey, that makes sense, and then you try it out and you'll get a negative in the wrong place, or you move a divide at the wrong time. Okay, so it just takes a wee bit of practice just to familiarize yourself and get comfortable with these rules. Okay, it's one of those things that once it clicks, it clicks. Okay, and you've got it. Okay, any questions so far, guys? Okay. Okay, numbers are a wee bit higher this time, but again, exact same process. Okay, 9x minus 6x equals 73 minus 58. With 3x, and that would leave you with 50. Okay. Moving that multiple across, just 15 over 3, x becomes 5. Okay. So it's nothing there too outrageous, okay, but we need to sort of be comfortable with that. We need to be comfortable with moving letters and numbers about, collecting like terms. Okay, so remember we can only add or subtract like terms. Okay, so 9x squared plus 6x squared. Okay, we can't add or subtract things like 9x squared minus 6x. Okay, it has to be like terms. That variable has to have the same order. Okay, or it has to be a whole number. Okay, so just have a wee practice on that, just have a wee look. Okay, so open up document. Remember, it's the second one, which is the relationships one. Okay, so pack 2, relationship. Okay, so when you're in Moodle, okay, make sure you can get back into Moodle. Okay, remember we're on pack 2 now. Okay, so that's available for you there. Okay, so in pack 2, we're just on page 13. Okay, so we're just on page 13, just getting comfortable with moving. Okay, don't be put off by the changing of the letters. It's the same thing. Okay, so we're just collecting like terms. Okay, so there's nothing too difficult there. Okay, 7, 8. Okay, so just question 7 and 8. If you want to look back at a couple, okay, of other questions, feel free, just get comfortable, especially where there's negatives. When we're moving a negative across, that negative multiplication, moving that across to the other side, you're having a dividing of a negative and a negative. Okay, so just make sure you're comfortable in that respect as well. Okay, if any answers don't make sense, give me a wee shout. Okay, we'll take just 15 minutes to allow you to open that up and have a wee go. So page 13 and 14, and we're looking at questions 7 and 8. Okay, if you wouldn't mind. Okay, so have a go, jump about the questions a wee bit, have a wee look. Okay, hopefully it won't pose too much of an issue. Okay, so we'll take 15 minutes. So we'll come back together at 10 to 7. Okay. Any questions, give me a wee shout. Nice one. Okay, hopefully that was okay. Is there any questions on that? At all? Are we okay? Are we quite comfortable with that move, just moving things across? The reason I want to focus on this Again, we've done a wee bit, we've touched on it quite a bit in different parts, different units. Okay, there is one question that for the last couple of years has come up. Okay, before that it was quite rare, but for the last couple of years it's come up. And it's when we've got quite a complex fraction, it's either got a fraction in it, okay, or it's got a couple of brackets in it, and sort of rearranging that. So I want to spend a wee bit of time firstly looking at just equations with fractions in them. Okay, it's sometimes quite difficult just to be sure where everything's going, okay, and in what order it goes. So let's just have a wee look at, okay, so wee reminder, when we're adding or subtracting a fraction, okay, so when we've got a fraction plus or a fraction minus another fraction, okay, we're going to do our KISS smile technique. Okay, so we're going to effectively cross multiply, okay, and then multiply the two bottom terms to get that. Okay, if we've got a multiplication, okay, of a fraction, okay, we multiply the top and we multiply the bottom. Nice and simple. Okay, and when we're going to divide a fraction, okay, we flip the second term. Okay, the second fraction, and then multiply as normal. Okay, and again, we've done this over the last few weeks when we've ended up with a fraction as part of a straight line equation or whatever. Okay, so hopefully you're familiar with this. I just want to go over a few points where sometimes you struggle, and then look at a sort of past paper question off the back of that, okay, where we've got a couple of fractions. Okay, so again, just a wee reminder, just a wee note about the way that fractions can be written out. When we've got a fraction like that, 1/5 of x, okay, we can also write that as x over 5, okay, or even 1x over 5. Okay, so that x term is effectively being multiplied by that fraction. Okay, so it's 1x on the top divided by 5. Okay, we've got something where we've got a wee bracket involved. Okay, so we've got a half 6x plus 4. Okay, quite common to see something like that format. We can change that, we can write that. Okay, we can also write that 6x plus 4 over 2. Okay, so it doesn't always need that bracket on top of it. And that's where some people sometimes get lost. Okay, you can also write that, separate that out. Like that, and then simplify that. Write down. Okay, so the same thing can be written out in quite a few different formats. Okay, and that's really important. Two seconds, guys.